What is up, everybody? Fleming738 here, playing Pyre. Completing Pyre today, presumably, because we have one last round against someone that I'm quite honestly half expecting to lose to. Luckily, he's not going to be as fast as that last fight against the Harps, so hopefully it won't be too bad. Got anything else to say, Falconrod, before we get in here? Oh, hey guys, this, I guess it's a little awkward here, I guess, because I said goodbye and stuff to you already, so, just maybe have a look around or something. That's great. Yeah, no, I have 2 coins and nothing that I want to part ways with, because these are all so valuable to me, so that's it for that. Didn't see nothing you like this time, huh? Now I'm curious if there's more to say. My favorite guys, they're back already, for some reason. Okay, that's probably it. If you didn't have an exit line that time, that's... Yeah, okay, alright. That's fun. Fun little detail. Alright, we're going to take one last look at the Black Wagon, just to make sure we're not missing anything. Okay. Why is this always shiny? We've looked at this before. Anyways. Guess let's go, get going. Commence the final liberation rite. This is your final opportunity to liberate one of your fellow exiles and help fulfill Volfred's plan. And as a reminder, we are still a nat 1 away from still losing the plan. 94% is not as surefire as it sounds. You have gained the summit of Mount Jodariel for the 7th time. Very few stars remain above to light your way as you await the commencement of the final liberation rite. The lone minstrel finds you clutching the Book of Rites, seeking there perhaps some bit of wisdom that has eluded you thus far.
Reader, we may not have a chance to speak again after this. I may have to go. I wish to say that I am grateful for having made your acquaintance, and I shall remember you with fondness. I wish you well this night and always. Go forth with glory.
Then he looks up and he extends his hand in friendship. You clasp it. Don't even get a choice, nor do I want one. Of course I do. It's the manliest handshake ever, even though the player character here is canonically a woman. It's still manly in the gender neutral sense, in the supportive. Everyone is supportive of each other way. You know what I just want it to be like the Predator handshake is all I'm trying to say here. You see Faye has joined you. All of your companions are there with her, in fact.
Oh, hi, miss. The others, they said they wanted me to join them and come talk to you, so here I am. The Scribes are watching us. Well, Vita, darling, what do you say we give those old Scribes a real show to remember then, shall we? Reading one, thou art both wiser and less irritating than most others of thy kind. We have learned something from thee, and we are grateful.
You look upon your fellow exiles, your companions with whom you have withstood the downside, and with whom you shall now conduct this final rite.
Begging your pardon, but my time has come. We shall see each other soon.
He departs. After this, the outcome of Volfred's plan, the plan of which you all have been a part, shall be decided, one way or another. Yeah, we're literally, exactly 90%, literally at the nat 1 ratio. Great. For now, all you can do is strive to prevail against your final adversary so that one last companion may go free. You rise to join your fellow exiles as the last remaining stars ignite. The final liberation rite of this age shall now commence. Let us stand together. I just realized we have a full Valkyrie squad without Sir Gilman, between my character being female, and then we have Pamitha, Faye, and Bertrude. So, that's rad. We're not taking any chances today. No need for experience points. Not like that helped me last time, though. Having come this far, I need but to take the final steps upon your quest for freedom. Don't tell me, don't remind me of the stakes. I know. Like, if we lose and Pamitha doesn't go free, I can come to terms with that. But it would still be kind of a sucky way to end the game on a loss, you know?
All of Solium, dear reader. Hear me for one last time.
Finally.
For soon the few remaining stars shall fade away, leaving you stranded there for your remaining days in that forsaken land where you deserve to be. The rabble that you roused here in the Commonwealth shall be put down. The exiles whom you liberated all shall fall in line. But first, let us get on with this last liberation rite. You face none other than yourselves. Each so unlike the glorious Nightwings of yore. 'Tis a shame that one of you shall soon be free, for you deserve each other.
At least no matter who loses, the Nightwings win, which sounds dumb and cheeky, but it's gonna make the Archjustice really upset, and that makes me happy. The pyres burn, and each of the champions is present and prepared. But before the lone minstrel can concur, as per the custom, not another word. The demon Oralech slowly raises his clawed fingers to his mask. The false Nightwings have arrived at last. Long have I awaited this. My freedom once was stolen from me. Then I was cheated of it here upon this mountaintop. You may now attempt to take it from me once more. He stands there for a moment, silent. Then Oralech dons his mask and stands prepared. May these damned rites cease forever for the misery which they caused. Of course they get plus 40. Nightwings, we shall not meet again after tonight, for the cycle of the rites is all but ended. Thus I would have your decision. On whose behalf shall you conduct this final liberation rite? The one whom you anoint, or else the exile Oralech shall be returned. Godspeed, reader. You know what is at stake better than I. I have utmost faith in you to make the best decision, and conduct this rite with glory. Nightwings, the star's remaining light grows dim. Your decision, please. It is now time to choose who, if anyone among you, shall go free this one last time. The rest of you shall remain on the downside till the end of your days. One by one, you meet the gazes of each of your fellow exiles. Bertrude. Okay, same as usual. Faye. Pamitha. Your fellow exiles, your companions, your friends. Together you have come this far, but now the downside and the rights conspire to tear your group apart and disrupt your plan. Wait, it's not disrupting the plan. This is all part of the plan still. Are you prepared to choose this one last time? Yes, for there is no turning back. The fate of your friends in the Commonwealth may hinge on the decision you're about to make. No, the pressure is too great. It seems both cruel and unfair to have to make such a decision. Is there no other way? Is there no other way makes me interested to know, like, is there another way? But no, the pressure is too great makes it sound like I'm giving up. And I don't like that. So there is no turning back. We gotta commit. With but a glance, you reassure your fellow exiles that you know what to do.
One final opportunity for salvation. Too bad for the rest of you.
But first, let's see who we're fighting. We have Oralech, who is... He can banish us by flinging it into us. He stuns when he jumps. He can double sprint. And he can do extra damage if he salutes. Gareth, or Kareth, I think it's Gareth, is like Faye, I think. Savage is like Faye. Is fast. Doesn't have to charge up. When grasping the orb, he sprints and jumps out using stamina. I didn't know you could do that. And, yeah, doesn't have to charge up at all. And Ixa, oh great, an imp. Not fully leveled up. That's actually surprising to me. But is fast, returns faster after imploding, and has a big implosion. And, yeah, that makes him quicker. has the chance to return immediately, and that gives you plus 40. Cool. Alright, well I did make my decision. I stand by it. Bertrude has showed no interest in escaping, and Faye, I think, honestly would be happier here than in the Commonwealth. Pamitha, I think, still has a life to live that's not here in the downside. So we're going with Pamitha. I tell you that you've made a terrible mistake there, reader darling, but I think you haven't made as many as I have, so I'll try not to mess this up for either one of us. Your choice is cast. As for your other companions, you sense a clarity of thought and purpose in each of them. They stand ready to support Pamitha as well as you.
Who shall strive for her? Faye!
Blessed are the scribes who grant to me and all of us this final chance that we might free our dear friend Pamitha.
Bertrude.
Thy will is ours, reading one, that the remaining stars shed their last light upon their ceremony here.
It is done.
Those are to be my adversaries, then. And who is it, I wonder, who asserts her will over that group? You sense Oralech searching for you, almost, reaching out to you. You, the shadow of the false Nightwings. They are nothing to me. But you who would relinquish your own liberty for the sake of them. Strange. It is fitting, then, that I should have to face one such as you. Then Oralech stands at the ready, signaling for his two allies to do the same. By light of dawn, the cycle of the right shall cease. Let us see if we can finish this ordeal before that time. The sky above begins to shudder. The final liberation rite is about to commence. Tariq! Aye, I am prepared, Celeste. Then let our song this evening shake the stars themselves. Aye, Celeste. Let us make sure of it.
Begin. The final chance at liberation for the age.
The sky rains ash, soon shall your Pyre's own mingle with them. Just then the skies above begin to rain down fire, the final throes of the cycle of the rites, and the ending of the age.
Good shot, Faye. Good shot.
Okay. This isn't quite the curb stomp it was last time, so happy about that.
Alright, just stay on that side of the field, please. Thank you.
Now take it.
Oh, you want me to? Okay, I'll do that. Sure.
Her wings have served her.
Thought you effing hated me, but okay. Humph. So the false Nightwings bear their fangs at last. But that cannot be your finest effort. You think you deserve your freedom more than I? Then fight for it, damn you.
How he has changed, that Oralech. Grown old and bitter, lo, these many years. Blessed
God bless. Well done, Bertrude. God bless. Oh, 20 damage is actually a lot less than I expected from him. Oh, that was a good move. That was a good move on the Imp's part. Because by imploding, he had a chance to come back super fast. I was hoping that bounce would do more for me there.
now, then. The orb. Her wings
I wanted to give Pamitha the final, but that's okay. Oralech stands, breathing heavily. He looks back on the thin lick of flame that is his smoldering pyre, before turning his attention back to her triumvirate. And he has nothing to say. I figured I was going somewhere with that. Lady Pamitha will get it after all.
And there it is, at last.
God bless.
The Nightwings proved their worth.
Favored to prevail. You were gonna have to say the Nightwings won either way, man.
Little room for doubt.
I don't know. It was a little bit closer than it felt like. Okay, so they have to, for that first Oralech fight,
Thus ends the liberation.
they have to bump up the difficulty like a ton. I feel like you're meant to lose that one. Not bad there, Rita, darling. Just another night in the downside, no? You look upon Pamitha of what you expect shall be the last time you see each other. Any moment now the Shimmer Pool shall engulf her. Any moment now she shall return to glory and join with Volfred's agents in the Commonwealth to help achieve the plan. Any moment now, the cycle of the right shall end until at least the dawn of a new age. any moment now.
And thus, the scribes have chosen. And thus, the scribes have chosen.
Oh, what kind of BS is going to get thrown at us here?
And thus, the scribes have chosen. No. Nightwings. Reader, what have you done?
Volfred, did you do it too early? Did you pull the trigger too early? What's going on, man? Damn. Did we already miss our chance? Each prior time upon the fall of Solium, the Shimmer Pool is opened following the Liberation Rite and taken in whichever exile prevailed. But now, all is still, and the light of the stars above has all but died. You sense a growing fear that it is already too late, that the Shimmer Pool shall not reveal itself again. Oralech approaches, his head bowed. The 8 scribes saved their greatest treachery for last. Then something else catches his notice. Wait. A sudden rush of starlight cascades through the stillness of the summit. The Shimmer Pool has appeared again, different somehow, but open. Pamitha looks upon it, but it does not engulf her, or at least not yet. It seems I was mistaken then. The 8 scribes... This is not their greatest treachery. It is their greatest jest. The Shimmer Pool is flung wide open. It seems that all are worthy now of freedom. Oralech strides toward the Shimmer Pool, but... Halt, Oralech. Oralech glances over at the lone minstrel, almost in surprise. The Shimmer Pool has lost most of its strength. You step aside, and you shall surely drown. You step inside, and you shall surely drown. Of that I can assure you. He laughs to himself at this. Then we have all been cheated. No. The Shimmer Pool is revealed, and one of you may still return as planned. But, as for who returns, someone shall have to choose. Ere the last light of the stars is extinguished and the rites cease to be, this is the final trial of the scribes. The final trial of the scribes. Then, our confrontation, the liberation rite, it all was meaningless? No, the victor of the confrontation is to be the one to make the choice among those closest to the scribes, either the anointed or she who anointed them. Then it's sounding rather like I can get out of here, though maybe you can, reader darling. Aye, it shall be either you, the reader, or... It shall be either or. Pamitha, please make your decision quickly, lest it shall be forfeit. I do not know for how much longer the light of the stars shall offer you this gift. Quite the dilemma, but I think I know which way I'm leaning here. Okay, I was too busy focused on the voice acting. I didn't actually read who gets to make the choice. I guess it's Pamitha, which thank God I don't have to make the decision, because part of me would really like to, not even to get back to the Commonwealth, but just to be with all my friends again. Obviously, I'm going to be sad saying goodbye to Pamitha and Faye, and Bertrude to an extent, although we haven't had quite the same emotional connection as the other two. But I would like to rejoin the rest of the party. I would love for everyone to get back together, but we always knew that was not going to be a possibility. But I made the choice. I was already okay with sending Pamitha and staying behind. So I am now okay with either option here, which is great because I feel like depending on the characters you have at the end, this could be an incredibly stressful thing to hear that it's not your choice anymore. But in this case, I'm okay with either option. Reader, darling, do me a favor now and go get out of there before I start having second thoughts. Pamitha wishes to give up her freedom so that you may regain yours. Very well. That's what I figured was going to happen. Although I wonder if you don't work on your relationships with them, if that affects the decision. Reader, madam, the choice which Pamitha made, or rather the choice which she gave, is now yours to make instead. Okay, so never mind. I guess Pamitha gets first priority of whether or not she wants to choose, and then she can just hand it off to me. This choice with me keep bouncing back and forth like this, absurd. It may, until such time as one of you is willing to accept the burden and the outcome of the choice. That is the trial, and I fear that there is little time remaining now. Humph. Reader, if you and your companion are too cordial with each other to accept that freedom, either one of you, then I shall gladly take it. Freedom ought to be more than some flirtatious trifle to... Did I say that? Did I say that right? Flirtatious trifle to exchange. Reader, what is your will? Who shall finally go free? Choose yourself. This is your chance, Pamitha wished that you should take it. Choose Pamitha. Your intention this night was for her to return to glory, and it shall be done. Choose Oralech. He earned his rightful freedom long ago. He deserves his justice. That's kind of true. That's the upsetting part, is that he did technically win. But he's also been quite the jerk since then. And this whole game is about, like, redeeming yourself and becoming a better person, and he hasn't really done that. So, like, we all deserve our freedom at this point, and even though he does deserve it, I think he deserves it less than the other two choices. Pamitha wanted me to go. Pamitha still has her sister she can try to reconnect with. And Pamitha, even when I anointed her, immediately said, I don't know if that was the right decision, but okay. But I feel like it's thematically fitting if I stay, and I want Pamitha to have... She said she's kind of given up on her sister. And also, I read books. I'm not going to help the revolution that much. Yeah. You are decided. You have chosen Pamitha. She looks at you with some astonishment. Pamitha, madam, do you accept the reader's choice, or shall you make another?
Simply, sir.
Sure, why not? Thank you, darling. I guess I'll owe you one when next we meet. In this life or the next. Then it is done. You see a look of genuine surprise flash across Pamitha's face, and then... she is gone. You gave a chance at freedom so that Pamitha may yet have hers. She is set to return to the Commonwealth and leave the downside forever. May she return in glory.
Godspeed, Pamitha Thane. By the Scribes. No stars remain aloft. The cycle of the rites. It is finished. The Commonwealth. What shall become of it? What shall become
My
of
job.
us?
My benefits. What's gonna happen?
Nightwings. The opportunity to gain your freedom from the downside. Was it not enough?
Yeah, this was one of those where, like, I don't think I would regret it either way, but I would have been curious to see how it goes either way, you know? Because I stand by, I had a final 3. That night, the exile Pamitha returned to the Commonwealth. She was to be the last. The stars had faded, and the cycle of the rites had run its course. Can't tell if there's more text that's going to pop up for this one. I guess not. I stand by it. It would have been more difficult if I had had other characters, I think. But I had a final 3 where I think all 3 of them would have been okay staying in the downside. But also, I stand by letting Pamitha go. I don't think I regret that. She found the Commonwealth in great upheaval. Spurred by the efforts of 6 liberated exiles, Volfred Sandwood's revolutionary plan had incited the masses. These exiles and the starless sky portended the return of the Scribes. Okay, I think it's 3 lines at once. The people surged into the streets, shoulder to shoulder, led by the 6 exiles. Their voices shook the heavens. The leadership of the Commonwealth panicked. No blood was shed that night, and by dawn it was over. The leaders of the Commonwealth had cast themselves back into exile or joined in this new cause. Thus, in its 838th year, the Commonwealth had fallen. The new Saurian Union declared its sovereignty in the next year. Among the changes its elected leaders ushered in, they vowed never to cast their people into exile, and they abolished the old Commonwealth decree forbidding literacy. Today, we still remember all of this. And we remember the exiles of the downside whose deeds led to the dawning of our age, whether they returned or not. True freedom, achievement unlocked. We could look around. I thought this was like a credit screen. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, first let's start with these folks. Oh, we have a ways to go. After the Liberation Rite, Lendel refused to believe that the rites had truly ended. He would sit through night after consecutive night, staring into the blackness of the sky, awaiting any sign that he might gain another chance of freedom. No such sign ever came. His fellow accusers started to express concern for him. Survival had become their top priority once liberty had slipped from their grasp. But Lendel dismissed them as weak fools. He insisted rather forcefully that any evening now, the stars would shine for him again and mark the way toward his inevitable freedom. He was, of course, mistaken. The others in his triumvirate were left with little choice but to abandon him. After that, the exile known as Lendel the Liar was never seen again. However, there have since been sightings of a bedraggled demon who wanders the downside and bears Lendel's cruel countenance, suggesting he yet lives. Oh, we go one by one, and they're just gone. As the cycle of the rites drew to a close, it grew evident that a chance at freedom from the downside had forever slipped from Dalbert and Almer Oldheart's grasp. Thus, they and the exiles of the Fate returned to Jomur Valley. There they struggled to get by, as exiles of the downside tend to do. Sometime after the rites had ended, the Old Hearts at last heard the news that the Commonwealth had fallen. This was well after the fact, of course, but it brought old Dalbert great joy. Despite his forthright manner, he had no love for the nation that cast him down, along with his son. Dalbert Oldheart passed peacefully in his sleep before the next new moon. In his final days, he implored his son to undertake a pilgrimage to the Scribes. Almer never shared his father's view of the Scribes, but respected Dalbert's wishes, and so, after a period of mourning, Almer began a new journey. One day during his travels, he ran almost headlong into another exile after paying homage at the spring of Jomur. He was stunned to find this was none other than the one he knew as Faye from their days as adversaries in the rites. Faye was overjoyed to see him, although Almer was unable to bring himself to understand why. Eventually, of course, he did, and they remained together, growing ever more accustomed to their new lives in the downside. Not a day went by that Almer Oldheart did not think about his father and give thanks to him, and speak to him at morning and at night. Would that the stars yet shone, for surely Dalbert's would be there among them, smiling down at his son and watching over him and his kin. All his life, Sir Deluge had fled from one danger only to find himself facing another. He had escaped the war-torn waters of the Sea Dominion, he had escaped the blood border of the Commonwealth, and now he had escaped the rites. After the rites had ended, many exiles wrapped up in this ancient test were crestfallen as their last chances to return to their homes vanished, along with the stars above. But Deluge did not mind, for this outcome meant that at last there was no burden of responsibility weighing down on him. While most of his fellow exiles of the Pyre hearts yet longed for the waters of the Sea Dominion, driven as ever by their impulses toward conflict, Deluge settled down. With him remained one of his companions, one Lady Seagrass, who had taken a liking to him, for some reason. Reportedly, they disappeared into the waters of Worm Gulf, which may begin to explain the significant increase in worm population observed in the vicinity.
After the cycle of the rites had ceased, witch Udmilthi returned to the Flagging Hands region where she sealed herself within the pit of Milithe. There, even her fellow exiles of the Withdrawn allegedly grew unnerved after a time and left her to her vile work. Sometime later, the pit of Milithe erupted into flames, so intense was the conflagration that it could be seen all the way from Jomor Valley. Arson was suspected, though the cause was never verified, and many bog dwellers in the region were forced to flee. A tempest blowing from the north finally quenched the flames. When at last the ashes settled and the grounds had cooled, the site of the fire was scarred beyond recognition. No trace of witch Udmilthi could be found. As for the contents of the pit of Milithe, which notably included a profane object thought to be the remains of Islach, all of it was gone as well. Back in the Saurian Union, Udmilthi's repeated threats of the return of Islach were thoroughly investigated, and no credence was found to any of her claims. Saurian Union, our nation formed in 839 AS after the fall of the Commonwealth. One day we all may stand shoulder to shoulder with a common cause, Volfred Sandalwood. I love that it's our nation. It's being told in the present now. That's a very nice touch. Barker Ashpaws never had much interest in returning to the Commonwealth, for he always found his bylaws to be stifling, so when the rites ended, he did not care at first. He soon grew very bored. The rites had given him his life a certain sense of structure he had always needed. He missed the raw anticipation of it all. He decided to continue conducting the rites for the thrill of it. He bent some of the rules and replaced some of the objects, but it was close enough. His packmates, the dissidents, proved more than happy to participate, and thus they ran against each other back in Jomor Valley. Gradually, other exiles familiar with the rites, as well as those who had not heard of it at all, started to take an interest. They ended up giving Barker Ashpaw some healthy competition. His old feud with Rookie Greentail ceased meaning anything to him, and he forgot all about it amid his new pursuits. Ultimately, even Barker Ashpaws, who led such a directionless existence to that point, found something of a calling through the rites. Whether he took the rites less seriously than any other exile of his time, or more, was oft debated by those who watched him work. That's cute that he just starts the sport. That's fun. When manly Tinderstaff realized the rites had ended and that he no longer could return to the Commonwealth through his ancient means, he was outraged. He cursed the Scribes, spewing forth such a slew of blasphemy as to be very unbecoming of one of his high status and bearing. When at last he calmed himself, he focused all his energies on attempting to find another means of homecoming. He maintained regular contact with his wealthy family on the other side via messenger imp and used their vast resources to explore other means of escape. He tried using an elaborate pulley system. He attempted to retrofit a flying black wagon with superior propulsion. He tried an imp raft, a hot air balloon, even prayer. Nothing worked. There was only one way to escape the downside, and now it was gone. Tinderstaff bankrupted his family in these vain attempts. At last, such was his shame that he retreated to the teeming woods of Black Basin to Cinderroot. There he yet wallows, complaining to his comrades of the chastity who still put up with him, either about his own misfortune or the latest news from the other side. Once it became clear to Ignarius that the rites were drawing to a close, he knew it was time for him and the Tempers to call it quits. But first, he and the Tempers decided to celebrate, and that they did, for many, many nights. The revelry did eventually subside. The exiles parted amicably and went their separate ways. He roamed the downside then, searching for some meaning in his life, sometimes taking odd jobs requiring his brute strength. He never remained alone for very long and took on many lovers in his time. However, he sometimes thought about the one he had called Curlyhorns and what became of her. Though his glory days as the most powerful conductor of the rites had long since passed, he always enjoyed the fearsome reputation he had cultivated at that time. Throughout her exile, Pamitha Thane was motivated by one single goal, to return to the Commonwealth and exact vengeance upon her ancient enemies. When she realized the rites had ended and that she would never see her mountain home again, she nonetheless remained determined to aid her people however possible. She had gathered certain information pertaining to the intentions of the Nightwings, who had formed a pact to regroup on the other side after the liberation. Other such reports exposed certain weaknesses in the Commonwealth defenses and revealed to the Highwing remnants the opportunity for a risky but potentially impactful strike. As Pamitha could not participate in the assault, she learned what happened well after the outcome. On that night, known as the Scribes' return, the Commonwealth had fallen. The Highwing remnants thus prevailed, at least, without even having to fight. Inspired of the liberated exiles, the people of the Commonwealth demanded new leadership during the Scribes' return. Cast yourselves down, chant in the Scribes' return. That's fun. I love the Scribes' return implying that, like, each member of the Nightwings represents one of the Scribes. That's a really cool lore detail. Soon after the fall of the Commonwealth, Pamitha learned her blood sister Pamitha was an accessory to the successful outcome. Pamitha was very skeptical of this, but as similar reports kept mounting, she soon accepted the prevailing opinion, however grudgingly. Once a messenger imp arrived bearing some sort of message, seemingly from Pamitha. However, Pamitha turned it away. She would not give in to an impulse to forgive.
Knowing that the conflict on the other side had ended, Pamitha retreated to the crags of Black Basin and grew ever more distant. Those closest to her surmised that her inability to reconcile with her blood sister was at the heart of this, though for her part, Pamitha never once admitted to any such weakness. I don't know who to end on. We're not going to end on Falcon Ron, so let's get him out of the way. With the rights drawn to a close, the slug market's revenues fell precipitously, and Falcon Ron was forced to liquidate his assets and close up shop. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those of an entrepreneurial leaning, this time of hardship led to an epiphany, or at least a sudden change of fortune. One day, Falcon Ron had a run-in with a messenger imp bearing news from the other side. Ron gave it to one of his remaining trinkets, which could not be sold. Gave to it one of its remaining trinkets. The following week, the messenger imp returned to him bearing a tidy sum of wealth in newly minted coinage from the Saurian Union. Falcon Ron cut a long-term deal with the messenger imp then and there. Though his trade remained a gray area from a legal standpoint in the Saurian Union, the newfound fame of the downside caused Falcon Ron's goods to explode in popularity. He later signed an elaborate agreement with Big Bertrudes, and found a distribution partner on the other side through Rookie Greentail, whose own business had expanded. Especially in the Saurian Union, Falcon Ron's goods are still known for their superior quality, though he assumes no liability for any side effects. I need to decide now who I'm going to end on. I guess Tariq. We'll get through all of ours, then go to Oralech, then Volfred, then Celeste, then Tariq. And that the game makes it seem like it wants me to go that way. The imp called Tizo was the first of his kind to achieve liberty through the rites. While he was not the only imp trained in the way of the Scribes, imps are native to the downside and thus care not for traveling abroad. This made them useful to triumvirates. Yet Tizo had a different calling, and the Nightwings believed that he too could play a key part in Volfred Sandalwood's plan. During the night of the Scribes' return, he stood out to the populace as something of a miracle. They had only heard of downside imps before from legends of Howd the Swallow. Afterwards, it became something of an icon representing both the fall of the Commonwealth and the beginning of a new era. Sandalwood sometimes called for his assistance, and Tizo was always happy to oblige. The two would often reminisce about their times with the Lone Minstrel. Tizo often missed his interactions with the Reader of the Nightwings. They quickly built up quite a rapport back in the downside. And Tizo would often express wistful gratitude for all his time conducting the rites alongside the Nightwings who made such sacrifices for him. Other than that, Tizo was diligent about his role as something of a living artifact and helped interpret for the messenger imps that relayed news to and from the downside. Despite having gained significant celebrity, he never let it go to his head, although he did take full advantage of his access to the Saurian Union's fishing industry. After his liberation, Hedwyn was instrumental in the events leading to the fall of the Commonwealth and was vital to the outcome of the plan. The peaceful outcome of the Scribes' return was attributed to several key factors. One of them was the underlying ambition of the plan itself. Another was Hedwyn's visibility among the people in the streets. Identified to be a liberated exile, he was believed to be Golgol Athanian reborn. More importantly, however, was that one of the winged harps of the High Wing remnants accompanied him. She was later identified as Fikini Shang, a harp for whom Hedwyn cared deeply. They were separated when Hedwyn was exiled. I don't know if we ever knew that she was a harp, but I think we knew Hedwyn had a friend he wanted to get back to. Their bond was symbolic of what was at stake that night and proved vital to the peace that followed. In all his days as a leader of the Saurian Union, Hedwyn oft confided in his friend Jodariel. Despite her intense manner, there was no one whom he trusted more in times when circumspection was required. Hedwyn would often think back about the vow he made at the beginning of his quest for freedom. Although he cherished all the friendships he made, he had pledged to Jodariel, Rookie Greentail, and the Reader of the Nightwings that they might all be free again together. Once merely the status of a deviant, and now a revered title of the Saurian Union. I didn't read that in the last reader. He had broken that vow, for in the end, not all of them were able to return. A terrible guilt over this darkened his mood for a time. However, the others whom he still knew lifted his spirits, much like he had often lifted theirs. All of the Nightwings knew the stakes. While the others who stood with the Nightwings were not all able to remain in contact thus, Hedwyn thought of each of them often, and so, in turn, did they oft think of him. When the worm Gilman returned to the Commonwealth, he believed that he had regained something even more important than his freedom, his honor. Gilman relinquished his knighthood, and... It's pretty late. He relinquished his knighthood and declined an opportunity to serve as captain on the Blood Border. He was not interested in fighting any longer. Yet, as is sometimes the case with those such as he, a circumstance soon came about in which there came a need for him to once again make use of his military training. Thankfully, however, the Scribes' return ended peaceably. Gilman was on edge throughout the night, expecting violence to erupt at any moment, but the moment never came. When the matter was at last put to rest, then Gilman truly knew his time as a knight had ended. He declared to all those in earshot that he would never fight again. Unless, of course, there arose some other extraordinary set of circumstance, again requiring him to fight, but he certainly hoped not. He still trained regularly, just in case, especially with his fleet-footed friend, Rookie Greentail. He was always grateful for having studied under the reader of the Nightwings, without whom he would never have completed his penance. Because of this, and perhaps because they were on opposite sides of the world now, Gilman dedicated his life to her. Because they were on opposite sides of the world, he didn't have to do anything about it. By that point, he had long forgotten about his days under the leadership of Sir Deluge, his former commander. Breaking free of his abusive leadership was his first step toward gaining a bit of self-respect. Gilman never did return to his homeland of the Sea Dominion and was content to lead a monastic life on a small residence in the hills. It was just high up enough to make him keep striving to conquer his fear of heights. Other than that, an intense daily training regimen and the occasional visit from an old companion was more than enough to keep him optimistic and engaged. He knew by then that honor was not something to be won, but a contract with oneself to be renewed each day. Interesting that the scribe was not mentioned for him. Most of these have been mentioning the scribes. Okay. Gotta be careful about my order here. Actually, I've changed my mind about the order I'm gonna go in. After Rookie Greentail earned back his freedom, he returned to a lavish welcome ceremony in the Commonwealth, as was the tendency for liberated exiles. It was everything he could have hoped for, and soon he was well off, surrounded by luxury, and choosing between various exciting opportunities. However, he must have given in to his better judgment, as he did end up siding with Volfred Sandalwood's revolutionary forces, as he promised. On the night of the scribe's return, Greentail was there with the others, inspiring the masses. He never looked prouder, the very image of Jomur Manymane himself. When dawn finally came, and it became clear that the Commonwealth became clear to the Commonwealth that everybody knew would be no more, he realized many new opportunities awaited. Nailed it. First try. He began quite a lucrative career for himself, manufacturing and selling replica merchandise inspired by the downside. His main struggle was to meet demand. An aspect of his conscience cautioned him against making light of such a thing, but the money was too good, and soon his family was as well off as he always said. One of his orders of business was to seek out one of his old companions, Pamitha Thane, to whom he took a liking during their quest for freedom. They bonded further over love of drink and supported one another through uncertain times that lay in store. He also kept in close touch with Gilman, ever the perfect practice partner. They would train together often, taking care to stay in tip-top shape as much as possible throughout the years. Greentail always did his best to keep in touch with all his many friends, and knew that he owed his fortunes to them. He made a special point of staying close with the group of friends he came to know so well during his time with the Nightwings, wherever they were. They shared a special understanding that put even Greentail at a loss for words sometimes. After regaining her freedom, wow, without the helmet, I actually really don't like that hair. It's pretty bad hat hair is what it looks like. After regaining her freedom, Pamitha Thane found herself in a difficult position. Having once betrayed her people of the Highwing Remnants, she knew that she would not be welcome in her native home. She did not trust the Commonwealth either. Instead, she found her place among Volfred Sandalwood's agents, who were busy doing their part to fulfill the plan. Although she didn't have much time to partake in the plan, apparently, because it was already happening by the time she got up there. As it turned out, the plan was a success. Pamitha Thane stood shoulder to shoulder with her other fellow former exiles, and truly they were a sight to behold. A disturbing rumor later spread that that night the Highwing Remnants were slated to mount an assault, which for some reason never came to pass. Pamitha denied any knowledge or involvement. Afterward, Pamitha played an active part in negotiating terms between the Highwing Remnants and the new nation that would become our Saurian Union. Her previous attempt at something of the sort led to her exile. She must have felt some satisfaction to succeed this time around. Sometime later, Pamitha had an unexpected run-in with Rookie Greentail, with whom she had spent a fair amount of time while traveling with the Nightwings. Under these new set of circumstances, it turned out the two had more to talk about, and rather more in common. They would often put to test which one was able to outdrink the other. It is unclear as to which one of them prevailed in that contest in the end. One day, Pamitha received an invitation to return to the Highwing Remnants, where she was to be fully pardoned. She held out a hope that she might see her blood sister Tamitha there, knowing full well that Tamitha did not regain her freedom. Tamitha did later learn that Pamitha was welcomed back by their people. However, she never responded to her blood sister's attempts to contact her. Pamitha, in turn, did not expect forgiveness from her at any point. Nonetheless, she kept on trying to reach out, she said, to ruffle up her feathers just a bit. Later, when asked, Pamitha Thane admitted she felt as though she had no home to call her own. This was during an interview conducted amid an extensive trip abroad, for she had traveled thousands of leagues beyond the bounds of the Saurian Union. Pamitha continued to journey thus, citing that it reminded her of when she was younger, and she could fly unfettered. Okay. After her liberation, Jodariel became an icon of the movement that led to the collapse of the Commonwealth and the rise of the Saurian Union. Her horns and stern countenance inspired the people to believe that she was Salia Mur reborn. She became a great, if reluctant, leader. In the uncertain times that followed, Jodariel's seasoned expertise often came into play both in matters of security and of state. For instance, she conscripted and trained a team of volunteers in public safety. The community did not know what to make of such a cordial bunch at first, but soon came to value their service. They have stood for the people ever since, and we celebrate their founding day each year. She remained close with Hedwyn all through this experience, and they supported each other through their struggles many, many times. She often had to stop herself from fearing for Faye, whom she had tried to look after as much as possible in the downside. Soon she would reassure herself that Faye was very capable of surviving on her own, and in fact, she was not mistaken. She never settled down with anyone, although from time to time, she thought about Ignarius, despite herself. She continued training on her own, a regimen that grew stricter with each passing year. There were those who sought to train with her, and she sometimes obliged. There remained one other constant in her life. She'd always remember her days among the Nightwings, and with fondness, for the most part. Okay. After the Shimmer Pool closed for what would be the last time, Oralech looked around him, in the flickering light of the Nightwing's still burning pyre. He then turned to the fall of Solium and looked up toward the black, starless sky. He cursed the 8 scribes then, one after the other. After that, he strode forward towards the waters coursing from the side of Mount Elodiel, and without hesitating, he cast himself down. Oralech's body was never recovered. The drop from Mount Elodiel does not appear survivable, though Oralech did survive it once. That time, however, he was filled with fury, such was the betrayal he had suffered when his fellow exile claimed his rightful freedom. This time, Oralech was filled with nothingness, and chose to leave the downside in the one way he still knew he could. The other Nightwings, who were witness to this, never forgot what they saw. I don't love that. I don't love... In this, again, I know I said that, like, he deserves... Of the three of us, he deserves redemption the least, but, like, in this entire game about redemption, it makes me a little bit sad to hear that. He just gave up at the end. That's sad. Not gave up, that's not a good way to phrase it, but, you know, it's... I wish he would have, like, you know, lived with that bitterness for a while and then grown out of it. So it's sad to hear that's how that ended. When Volfred Sandalwood regained his freedom, he knew that his work had only just begun. The nation that had exiled him to life in the downside now prepared to honor him, but he was not interested in such ceremony nor in freedom on the Commonwealth's own terms. He soon rejoined his agents, with whom he had been coordinating for years, slowly, carefully preparing for a night that soon would come. For Sandalwood and his loyalists and sympathizers, true freedom was at stake, not just theirs, but that of everyone living under the Commonwealth. He hoped to gather liberated exiles representing each of the 8 largest ethnic groups composing the population of the Commonwealth. They would stand together as a vision of the 8 scribes returned, inspiring the masses to embrace an older set of values from before the Commonwealth had tightened its grip. With the rites having ended sooner than expected, this optimal scenario became impossible, but Sandalwood did not relent and prepared to execute his plan, imperfect though it was. On the night of the scribe's return, he stood as one of 6 former exiles of the Nightwings, and their voices echoed together through the streets. These former exiles, who ought to have disappeared into the ranks of the Commonwealth's own leadership, now stood united with its people, who poured from their homes in solidarity. It was imperative to Sandalwood that this stand against the Commonwealth be peaceful in its nature. An overwhelming show of popular support would be more than enough. Ensuring that this was a priority that night, and in the end the result was self-evident, the plan's goal had been achieved. Sandalwood's work far from over, still. He labored ceaselessly with representatives from across the population to restore a sense of stability. This transitional period had its troubles, though none that were not quickly solved. Such was the will and spirit of the people. They understood their freedom carried new responsibility. After the Saurian Union was born the next year, Sandalwood was elected as the nation's first prime minister. It was not his intent to run for this office, but the people chose him anyway. He led our fledgling nation through its nascent years. Nascent? One of his allies in all this was the imp Tizo, with whom he traveled all across the downside. Sandalwood often cited Tizo as the wellspring of his own enthusiasm for a brighter future, such was the creature's spirit. As Volfred Sandalwood gained more fame throughout this land for all his sacrifices and his contributions, he remained ever steadfast about 2 things. The first was that the cause itself ought to remain in focus. The freedom that the people had achieved, it was a gift to be cherished, a set of values that needed to be nurtured. The second point he made was that he himself had little to do with the outcome. He would often praise the exiles of the Nightwings who had stood with him, each in turn by name. He never forgot any of them. One day, on his birthday, the people of the Saurian Union presented to him a monument depicting him and the Nightwings as imagined in their prime. It has since ensured those of us with memories more fallible than that of Sandalwood likewise remember the achievements of his fellow former exiles and our cause. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, the lone minstrel bade the remaining Nightwings take the Black Wagon and seek their fortunes elsewhere on the downside. Their parting was heartfelt, but brief. He remained there at the summit of Mount Elodio with Celeste, where the two of them would chronicle the final outcome of the cycle. Neither Tariq nor Celeste were ever seen again. We know all this now through song attributed to them. Some claim these songs originated in the taverns of the Saran Union and merely were imbued with weight of folklore. However, exiles liberated from the downside corroborate each other's claims at having met this duo that presided over the liberation rites. Another folktale suggests these minstrels were heralds of the Scribes. Having fulfilled their obligations, they departed the world we know and rejoined their patrons. One of their famous songs describes another, simpler outcome. The two gave up their duties to the rites in favor of a life that they could share together. In any case, they are likely to remain the subject of such verses and such songs, for it was they who watched over the rites and ushered in our times. And now we go back to the people still in the downside. Several exiles of the Nightwings cared more for the plan of Sandalwood than to return home from the downside. The crone called Big Bertrude was a prime example. She had found a suitable environment to live within the dismal region known as Flagging Hands. There she had built up a thriving place of business known to many exiles in the land. With the rites having ended, she returned to her preoccupations, working away almost as though nothing had happened. When one gets to be more than 400 years of age, perhaps then even monumental events such as the culmination of the rites or the collapse of the Commonwealth are seen as trifling matters. Yeah, for 400 years old, you lived through half of the lifespan of the Commonwealth, so yeah, that honestly kind of makes sense. Much of her effort was doubtless due to the influence of Sandalwood, someone whom she had admired now for decades. Though they were very far apart now, she sought out news as to his whereabouts and found his actions in the Saran Union a rare source of inspiration. By and large, Bertrude kept focused on her work. Whether casting small enchantments or imbuing talismans, the work brought her a sense of purpose, she would say. In the Commonwealth, such services were strictly forbidden, but in the downside, there was a real need for simple luxuries, which the competing slug market could not always provide. Thus did Big Bertrude continue to live up to her name, and the tales of her days with the Nightwings made her that much more the living legend. After the cycle of the rites ceased turning, records of what happened to the Black Wagon of the Nightwings became inconclusive and contradictory. Some accounts suggest that the exiles of the Nightwings who remained in the downside continued to make use of the Black Wagon as their place of shelter and their means of travel. However, there is no record of what happened to the wagon's contents, such as the Book of Rites or the Beyonder Crystal, said to be haunted by the apparition Sandra the Unseeing. One possibility is that, when the lone minstrel took his leave, he took the Beyonder Crystal with him, for he was thus obliged. By this line of reasoning, however, the Black Wagon itself should have been taken also. Others remain skeptical that the Beyonder Crystal ever existed, or rather that the visions that it granted were anything other than the result of an active imagination or a fever dream. The bog dwellers of the southern bogs offer still another explanation, for they are familiar with binding enchantments. If there existed such an object in which the Sisters of the Arch had been expelled for more than 800 years, then the enchantment could have expired along with the light of the stars. An ancient band of killers trained almost from birth to carry out their missions without fail. All the sisters needed was a name and a sum of 500 sol up front. I think we might have learned that one point, but I had forgotten about it. What this would have meant for Sandra and the Beyonders is difficult to say for certain, other than it may have meant they were finally released. Nevertheless, the fates of Sandra and the Beyonder Crystal remain unknown. Yet those exiles of the Nightwings who claimed to have seen this apparition all spoke of her with degrees of reverence, or perhaps a little fear. Can you believe this, reader? Honestly. Sandra has appeared before you, as well you can see. They are so far from the mark with all this nonsense, I am wont to laugh. In fact, here goes. She laughs. She's referring to the account of her. You sense she does not care for it. Well then, let them gossip all they like. I merely wish that they would mention you at least in passing, when next they are at it. Though they shall never know even the half of it, shall they? Sandra seems irritated by the incomplete account of what happened to her. Reassure her the account was relatively flattering despite a lack of detail. It could have been worse. Humor her. Perhaps making some light of the situation will make Sandra feel better. Remain silent. Sometimes Sandra just needs a little time to vent. She values that you listen. I feel like at this point we formed like an actual legit friendship, so I'm going to humor her. You indicate to Sandra that the real truth of what happened between you would perhaps make too lascivious a tale to be told in such a format. She makes a bemused sound at this. Perhaps that story ought to get out, then. To think that they would go to all the trouble to make literacy accepted once again, only to print such drivel. Anyway, let us keep going, lovely reader. We know the truth of it. That is what matters. She fades into the Beyonder Crystal for now, and you tuck it away safe. That's cute. It's really cute that we're reading all of this, which, you know, with the whole literacy theme, that's nice too. But I figured it feels most fitting to end with Faye. Even though we got a little preview of how her story ends, I don't know, it just feels right to end with Faye. So
Long after the rites had ended, Faye admitted that she knew well before the fact that she would not be going home again. At least, she had a very strong feeling. She ended up not minding very much because she had little to return to in the Commonwealth. Her sense of home had changed. She took to wandering from one celestial landmark to the next, ever paying homage to the 8 scribes, who she believed had influenced all that transpired. She was no stranger to traveling alone, but was always happy to have company. Through it all, she would wonder how her little friend Tizo had fared. While they were divided now by a great distance, he always remained in her heart. Though they could not see each other any longer, Faye often thought about Jodariel and spoke to her as though she were there. Faye tried never to make a decision without first consulting her idea of what Miss Jodariel might say. Whenever she felt genuine doubt, which was not very often, she sought out the reader of the Nightwings. If there was anyone whom she trusted as much as the scribes, it was her. One day she encountered one of her former adversaries, one called Almer Oldheart, who had served the Fate. She remembered him much more than he did her, though only just at first. Their shared experience in the rites and their different points of view about the scribes formed the basis of what grew to be a long-lasting relationship. Faye always was devoted to her faith, but more so to her friends. Her gentle manner and unwavering conviction often helped them brave life in the downside, both with courage and with grace. There is one more account which warrants mention. The Nightwings conducted the rites under the guidance of a reader. Little is known of her. However, some accounts of her begin to paint a picture. We know she was of common birth, weak-framed, though raised with a penchant for learning. The journey to the downside left her close to death. It was then that the Nightwings found her. They brought her from the brink. She showed them the path. She pressed onward with the others. She had made a vow to help her friends be free. Thus did the cycle of the rites commence its final turns. When the final rite arrived, the reader's freedom was at stake. In the end, however, she remained in exile. From that point on, accounts of her diverge. It is said the voice which troubled her she never heard again. Some say she sailed across the Sea of Solace. Aww. Though whether that is true, only she knows. Because I said I wanted the life of a sailor. Aww. Someday, perhaps, that reader's own star shall emerge. Then it shall pierce the dark of night in all its brilliant glory. Last lines, I gotta get them right. Until such time, and ever after, all of us give thanks.
Their journey began on a barren waste where the reader arrived, afraid and alone. When she arrived, the book of rites awakened the Nightwings and ignited the flame. They follow the stars bound together, strands in our brain till the end. We sing of the last of the Nightwings who, having broken the cycle, shall live on in song. Hedwyn prevailed and strode the path
Oh,
that is
no.
hard before him. He has found his way home. Captain Jodariel, mother to many a foundling, she has found her way home.
What a good video game!
Rookie Greentail has proved
and every single member is getting their own verse, which is why I want to be quiet. Well, only 2 people did vocals, unless that means just the music.
The moon-touched girl feels the scribes in the heart of the downside. She remained to the end.
Tizo prevailed, first of his lowly kind, to ascend from the downside. He has found a new home. Sir Gilman the bold, ever in his quest, finding honor and glory, he has found his way home. Pamitha Thane, having pleased the scribe, seeking only forgiveness, she has found her way home. They follow the stars, bound together.
I kind of wish, like, I'm hoping that I can, like, almost download my customized version of this song or something, because the verses are going to be different depending on how you play the game, which is so cool. Okay, there is a cast. Although some of these I recognize are the singers as well. Yeah, no one I recognize, aside from seeing the names in the vocals section.
Volfred prevailed as the Nightwings guide, having led them to glory. He has found his way home.
The bog dweller Bertrude kept their foes at bay with her finest enchantments. She remained till the end. The reader at last made the Nightwings whole, having bound them together. She remained till the end. They follow the stars, bound to
I love that Bertrude got a little tuba in her verse as well. That's fun.
strands in a braid till the end. They follow
I was going to say, it's a very short acknowledgements list if you're not going to go into it.
strands in a braid till the end. Now at the end, as we bid farewell and return to the stars, we shall find our way home. We shall find our way home. We shall find our way home.
All right, I didn't cry. I got a little bit close. I teared up a little bit for the banner shot. That was really sweet, and the music ending there was really nice. I was half expecting like some kind of reveal at the end here. True Nightwing campaign mode unlocked? What? What does that mean? I get to play as Oralech? What is that? It makes sense to end on a library because of the whole like literacy conflict throughout the game. I still think this is a really nice closing shot. This is not the closing shot I would expected. I do love that the window has all the crests around it as well. What a good video game! This is another one of those where I've had time to express my thoughts throughout the whole game, so I don't have a lot more to add. But like, it's so impressive to have a pretty solid, it's not revolutionary, but a pretty solid, essentially, new sport. They just made a new sport and made a video game playing the sport. And yet, they had that concept, and then they were also like, let's just make this super cool world filled with lore that the player doesn't have to look super deep into if he doesn't want to, if they don't want to. But that is there to consume, and then this whole extra storyline and so many different interactions between all of the squad mates that like legitimately it feels like no two players games are going to be the same. Obviously statistically some of them are going to be pretty much the same, but like if I sent this game to all of my friends, and I don't have that many friends, so this helps me make my point here. Statistically speaking, it makes it more likely that my point will be correct. But if I were to send this to all my friends and everyone played through the game, we'd all get different little things and different little interactions. Who we send would be different. Some of my friends who are not as good as video games as I am, which is not saying a lot, which I guess that means I'm insulting them even more. But some people would lose the liberation rights, which means less of their party members even get liberated, which changes the dynamic of the game. If things go poorly enough, some of them would lose the revolution at the end, which is like, I feel bad for any player where that happens. Like, legit, you just get the bad ending and you have to play through the entire game again to get the good one. But like, yeah, I'm just really impressed with how much this still feels like an indie game. It's clear it's not like one of those $60 million ones, and yet there's so much in this game that feels simple at first, and then you realize, oh no, there's so much work going into this. And of course, there's tons of indie games where there's a ton of work put into it. I'm not saying that this is an exception, but it has such an indie vibe and yet has such a polish to it. And I think this is the only Supergiant game I've played so far, but I feel like that is consistent across all of their games. And with that in mind, I'm incredibly excited to play more Supergiant games. Because, spoiler alert, I will be playing more Supergiant games. But this was a fantastic start to the Supergianthon that I started. I was going to call it a Supermassathon, and then I remembered Supermassive Games is a completely different studio. They're the ones that make Until Dawn and Man of Medan. So I can't call it that. So for now, it's the Supergianthon, and I'll just have to come up with a catchier name as I go. But yeah, this was a really good game, and I recommend it to people. Even if you watch this entire Let's Play, I still recommend it because, as I've been saying, there's so much more to see, I feel like. And that's really, really cool. Character design, on point. Gameplay, on point. Voice acting, didn't hear all that much of it, but still on point. I don't know if I said character design, but character design, on point. Writing, on point. Humor, on point. Drama, on point. Emotions, on point. Lore, on point. On point. Music, on point. I know I said that already, but I need to say it again because the music was on point. There's just so little to complain about in this game. This isn't the best game I've ever played, but it's certainly
I would say it's one of my favorite games. Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, I don't... Yeah, it's just... This is a really good game. I always shoot myself in the foot because I try to make sure I'm not exaggerating. So I already regret saying this isn't the greatest game ever made because, while I agree with that statement objectively, that makes it sound like I'm saying it's not amazing. This is an amazing game. This is an amazing, fantastic, awesome game. And, like I said, I have so little to complain about because this was a really good game. Anyways, I'm going to start repeating myself and or saying stuff that sounds like I didn't love the game because, and I don't want to do that because I loved the game. This was a really good game. Have a safe trip home, everybody. Oh god, True Nightwing is just a difficulty level. Oh please god, no. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Base difficulty scheme is heightened, all Titan stars unlocked, and some must be used. Enlightenment required to rank up rescaled, cannot load checkpoints or restart rights. Book of Rights and White Loot fully unlocked. Oh, that's cool. Book of Rights fully unlocked. That's cool. Slug Market Inventory fully unlocked. Feats of Glory introduced much sooner. Once chosen, this cannot be changed. So this is just the Iron Man setting. That's cool. Yeah, I don't have to do that. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Jodariel and Volfred are hot. I'm just gonna put that out there. Have a safe trip home, everybody.